All right, we're live. So we're going to let this sit here. For anybody who can hear us joining in, we're going to let the audience build, and we are going to go live. Well, we are live. We're going to start promptly at 7:30. For those of you just tuning in, I have two seasoned El Paso Advocates, rescuers, that are going to help us understand the nightmare in El Paso. They've been living this nightmare now for 6 years. So we're going to start this promptly at 7:30. So feel free to keep yourself busy for 15 minutes. I'm going to go to my Facebook page and make sure it's popping up too. Hopefully it is. I have not used StreamYard before like this.
I don't see it.
Yep. No, it shows we're live. We're live.
Oh, yeah, you got to finish it before it'll show on your page, right?
Nope. No, it's live. So we have 15 minutes before we start. Yep. I normally just go live on regular Facebook on multiple pages that I have, but in order to bring guests on, I had to try this new platform, and it looks like it's working. I've got it up here on my phone. It looks good. Hopefully I'll be able to use all the little tools and things and pictures that I have. Yeah. I'm known for not being so tech savvy, so I'm quite proud that I even got it to do this, to be quite honest. Oh, geez. All right, I'm gonna say here, edit. Starts at 7:30. There we go. And I will say, I did formally invite Maddie's Fund. I invited Dr. Ellen Jefferson and the Duffield family, but I have not received a response. So I don't expect them to be on, but I actually was hoping they would join to get a different perspective, because they're the ones that implemented these programs and funded them. It would be nice to hear from them as to what, why they did this.
I think the key word here is conned.
I've looked at this from every angle, and obviously the Duffield family, I mean, he's a billionaire, he's a smart guy, he's a tech guy. I can't imagine that he doesn't know what they've done by now. But I also, on another hand, say to myself, he didn't jump into this needing money. He already has money. So what would be in it for a funder to participate in something like we're going to talk about today? What would be a benefit to that? I retired from the pharmaceutical industry, and so my rescue work was never my job. It was always something I did from my heart. So I looked at these things differently, and I always said to myself that the Duffield family and Maddie's Fund, they didn't make their fortune in the dog business. So I never could quite understand why they would have participated in this unless they were told inaccurate things about the overall programs that they were funding. But ultimately, if you have the kind of money that shapes policy, you have to do your due diligence, and the responsibility lies on you. So if you're going to fund something that's rolled out nationally with your money, you better make sure that there's data behind it, that it's going to work and it's not going to end up hurting animals. and people in poor areas. So I don't think they did that. If they did, the devastation that I've seen, not just in El Paso, but in cities like Memphis and LA and Atlanta and Dallas and Brownsville, the list goes on. There's nobody I know, if they knew the truth, would support this. Nobody. So we will start here in about 11 minutes. It's not easy to see who's joining in yet. So yeah, StreamYard. The platform actually is pretty easy to use, so I'm surprised that it all seems to be working good. You know, if you're just tuning in, I would love to know where you're watching from. So if you can make comments and let us know what area of the country that you're tuning in. I know there's advocates all over that are wanting to watch this broadcast. And I'm going to hit the record button now. See if, yep. So it's recording. Can you hear that music in the background?
No.
You can't? Okay.
No.
I'm going to get something to drink. We have 9 more minutes before we start.
That sounds like a good idea. I think I'm going to get something to drink too.
I already did.
I know. I saw you drinking and I thought, oh, I'm getting thirsty. Let me go get that. Actually, I'm going to turn my camera off. I'll be right back. Oops.
What are you drinking, Ron?
Water.
Me too. Lemon water.
Refrigerator water.
Refrigerator water. All right, let's see. I'm glad we started a little early, though, because normally when I do these live feeds, if you start a couple minutes early, a lot of people start jumping on. But we're recording, so we can play this. My kids tell me Facebook's for old ladies, but you know what? I'm going to be 60 this year. What do they think I am?
Well, what do they do? TikTok?
Yes.
See, I don't do TikTok. I know Victoria, the other co-director, of the rescue. She's the TikTok person. Me,
Yeah.
I'm the Facebook guru.
Oh yeah, same here. Well, that's where I started on Facebook.
Right.
TikTok didn't come out until what? How many years ago?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't really even do Instagram.
Yeah,
Nope.
very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely.
I guess I'm very much a Facebook girl.
Yep. Makes two of us.
And I'm having difficulty trying to figure out these AI programs, how to use them and integrate them, because I want to make cute little doggy videos of doggies dancing. But I can't figure it out.
Now, you know what, Barbara? I can do that. There's multiple different programs. I can help you with that.
Really?
Yeah, I have a couple of different ones that I use. Glam AI is one. Dream Face.
Hold on, I'm going to write these down.
Well, I don't think.
So,
Yeah, Glam AI and Dream Face I use, and then well, Hey Jen is for people, so that one you don't need. But there's so many of them out there.
I mean, I love it when I see those little videos of the dogs doing the dances. They're dancing,
I know, it's cute.
doing Michael Jackson dances. And
Yeah,
stuff.
it's super cute. Yeah.
But I haven't been able to figure how to use those programs yet.
Yeah, normally you just upload a picture and choose what dance you want or what theme, and it does it for you. So
okay. I mean, I think I've made great strides because I now know how to use Canva.
Oh wow, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I thought that thing was amazing when it came out.
Yeah, I still use Canva. I'm not going to get rid of Canva.
No.
Canva can do a lot of things. So, I asked you guys how long you've been in rescue, I realized, Barbara, you've been in 15 years. Ron's been in 11. I've been doing it 16 years. But if you think about it, we're old timers in rescue. We've been, with the three of us, we have 42 years of experience here.
Yeah. So, actually, I've been involved in animal rescue for 32 years.
Oh, okay.
15 years has been with Huckleberry Hound.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes. And I know I feel this way, and I know you guys probably do too, but things are worse now than they've ever been in my eyes.
Yes.
I put a cute small dog up for adoption back in 2019. Some of them would get 30, 40, 50 applications. Now they just trickle in. Quality homes are not as readily available as they used to be. So things have gotten really bad. It's so upsetting to me because I know I have, and I know you both have. I have worked myself to the bone trying to help dogs. I mean, every dog that I can, and to know that it's not better, it's worse now after 16 years of blood, sweat, and tears. That's hard to swallow.
Yes. Back in 2013, 2014, and even earlier than that, with the high youth and Asian numbers our shelter was producing, at least the animals were not left out on the streets to suffer. The last 6 years have been horrendous because these animals are just suffering, and they shouldn't be.
No.
It's worse. You're right. It is worse now because of that, because the way the animals are left to suffer.
Yeah. Well, and I this might be a conspiracy theory, but to me, it looks like every program they've put in place since the whole no-kill thing came around was put in place to serve that agenda and not serve the animals. And so it feels like they've been in a race to get to no kill by 2025 that failed miserably. And what they did to your city was the last hurrah, the last attempt to lie and manipulate those numbers any way they could.
Yes.
And they still failed. So, well, we've got 1 minute till showtime. If you're just tuning in at 7:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 El Paso time, we are going to start this podcast, and we have two advocates. It is 7:30. The two advocates that we have on here with us are both from El Paso, Texas. Ron Camo, he has been in animal rescue for 11 years and has run a nonprofit called Lucy's Dream. And Barbara Valencia has had Huckleberry Hound for 15 years, and both are very active in the city of El Paso rescuing dogs. And we're going to go over what happened in El Paso and what happened to 50,815 dogs and cats that magically disappeared. But before we begin, I was going to share something personal, like how I became aware of what was happening. The first time that I heard concerns about Best Friends Animal Society was when they began aggressively attacking the city of Weslaco shelter. They wanted them to change their policies and adopt this so-called no-kill model. And at that time, I'll be honest, I really did not know much about that organization, and I did not understand the controversy surrounding it. But we were encouraged to speak to the advocates in El Paso who had already been dealing with these policies. And when they started explaining what was happening to them, they laid this out step by step, how things changed and unfolded in El Paso. And I'll be candid. At first, I was skeptical, and I thought that maybe they were confused, that they got it wrong, because what they were describing to me sounded so cruel and far outside of what any true animal lover would ever support. I just could not imagine educated leaders in any city that would knowingly go along with something like this if they were told the truth about what it would mean for the animals and the people in the underserved areas, underprivileged areas. Because some of what they were describing to me was so unusual that it was hard to believe. But then it started unfolding. Over time, the sequence of events that were described to me by Ron and Barbara was like happening to the city of Brownsville, like it was a playbook, play by play by play. Everything they told us was going to happen, happened. And that's when I realized that this was not just a local misunderstanding or a disagreement about a shelter policy. There was something much bigger happening here. And that realization is why we're here tonight. For most of us, or most people watching that love animals, the shelter system seems very simple. If you find a stray dog, you take the dog to your local animal shelter. That animal shelter is funded with your tax dollars, and its job is to help the animals and to keep the community safe. For decades, that's how things worked. These shelters were called open intake shelters, which simply means they accepted animals when the public needed help. If a dog was lost, injured, or abandoned, or was roaming the streets, the shelter's doors were open. They could take the dog there for help. It wasn't a perfect system, and there was often overcrowding, and sometimes difficult decisions had to be made. But the animals, for the most part, were counted, sheltered, cared for, and the community had a place to turn if they needed help. But then a national movement began promoting something called no kill. The idea sounded wonderful. The goal was to dramatically reduce euthanasia in the shelters and save as many animals as possible. But in many places, the way they tried to reach those goals began to change the way the shelter operated. And over time, some of the shelters started restricting intake, meaning they weren't letting animals in. So people that found a stray were sometimes told to make appointments weeks out or try to handle the situation themselves. Now, managed intake can be a good tool if it's used right, but I can honestly tell you, I've seen it manipulated and used to reduce numbers, not to help animals. Now came the newest policy that we're going to talk about tonight, and it's been promoted by national organizations, and it's something called community sheltering. For those of you just tuning in, write that down. Community sheltering. It's also known as the HASS program, spelled HASS, Human Animal Support Services. And this is what they did to the city of El Paso. The idea behind it was that more animals should stay in the community instead of coming in the shelter. But in practice, the advocates like Ron and Barbara are going to show us and describe what actually happened in El Paso. Animals that once would have been helped and taken into the system were now not entering at all. On paper, the shelter numbers looked better, but on the streets and in the rescue community, the problem didn't disappear. It actually grew. So we're going to talk to these guys tonight to see and ask a very simple question. If the public shelter stopped accepting animals, where did these animals go? Where did they go? So I know, Barbara, you and Ron both been rescuing in El Paso for a long time. Prior to them implementing this program, how were things going in El Paso as two people that rescue animals? How was it going, Barbara?
It was going good. The shelter was an open admission shelter, which means they accepted any animal. No animal was turned away from the shelter, and they did not put any restrictions against their age, breed, health, temperament. It didn't matter. If an animal crossed the threshold of the shelter, it was taken in.
Okay. And you rescued dogs. If you wanted to rescue an animal, how were you working closely with Animal Care Services in El Paso?
Absolutely. The rescues, the community, and the shelter all became one collective group where we worked with the goal of getting animals out of the shelter alive. And with that, we were able to become rescue partners, and we were able to alleviate some of the what could be considered overcrowding, where the dogs would not sit at the shelter, that the rescues would pull them. Also, with the shelter taking in as an open admission shelter, it left the animals that truly needed medical care, that were injured, puppies, that kind of stuff. That was left to the rescues. The rescues had the time, the space, and the resources to concentrate on those animals, while the shelter was able to take in the rest of the animals.
Okay. And Ron, did you think things were going well as, in 2019 before they implemented community sheltering, Haas and Best Friends came in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the difference is day and night. In 2019, like Barbara said, the shelter, the rescues, the community, everybody had one goal. We were there to help the animals. Back then in the shelter, if they got injured dogs, they'd contact us. We'd get them out. We'd get them to vets, instead of them laying in kennels in the back of the building. It was such a great experience to be part of what became a great sheltering plan that we were using in 2019, 17, 18, 19. I was very proud of our city. And a lot of people were actually very proud of our city. We saved lots and lots of lives. And I mean, we've destroyed that.
So,
We no longer do that.
so then we all had something happen in 2020 or 20, it was late 2019, I guess. We had COVID hit. And that's when it looks like, according to their internal documents, they used the disruption of COVID to bring in this new program. What happened after this program was brought in? And Barbara, you said it very elegantly. You said you went to bed on a Sunday. Can you repeat that and tell me what you did?
Yes, it was sort of like, everybody went to bed on a Sunday night and our shelter was an open admission shelter. We woke up Monday morning. To our surprise, the shelter had closed intake, and healthy strays and lost animals were no longer going to be accepted at the shelter. They were to remain out in the community, and now it was the community's problem, and the community needed to come up with what is going to happen with all these animals.
And
we were blindsided.
So they did not send out any kind of a notice to people that, hey, you're going to now have to take care of all these animals.
No, they did not send out any public announcement. They did not bring this idea of closing the shelter to intake to the public. They didn't include the public in any discussions or any decision making. The decision to go to Haas, from an open admission shelter to Haas, was done secretly behind closed doors. And that was done by the then shelter director, Paula Powell, the then city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, and the then mayor, Dee Margot. They all did this in secret, and it was just thrust upon us. Surprise.
So have you ever had your garbage day changed?
Actually, they did change our garbage day, but we did get a notice.
You got a notice that said,
Yes.
Hey, Barbara, your garbage is going to be picked up on Thursdays, not Tuesdays.
Correct.
Okay. So they literally, and this is the part I didn't quite, when I first talked to both of you, I thought you had to surely have this wrong. But then I've watched it happen in multiple cities now. So you went to bed on a Sunday, you had an open intake facility, they bring this program in, and all of a sudden, now they don't take in stray animals anymore. The doors of the shelter are shut, and it's the responsibility of the community. Ron, yes. What have you seen in the streets since this started? What did that do?
The stray population just exploded. The disease exploded. I mean, I was given from a lab in Colorado supplies to do blood work because we were one of the worst cities for parvo distemper, and they wanted to do some blood work to see what how badly it's mutated. Our dog attacks have skyrocketed. Our critical dog attacks have skyrocketed. I mean, to the point where Texas Parks and Wildlife Rangers have warned the city of El Paso that due to the growth of strays in the city of El Paso, we are putting the community at risk, especially women and children. And that is the everyday life of El Paso.
So you gave me a number, and yes. I'm going to put this up on a banner because I know you got this through an open records request, but it's quite staggering. So when you say 50,815 less animals have come through the doors since they implemented the community shelter, or HAAS, that's over a 6-year period, right? That's how many less animals they've helped.
That's correct.
Now, if you just took an average population chart and said 5% of those animals procreated, let's say they made more strays. It's not just 1 year this has been going on. It has been compounding year after year after year. So would it be fair to say that the city of El Paso has bred thousands and thousands of new animals since they opened or implemented this program?
I can honestly say that my one comment that I use all the time is El Paso Animal Services has become the biggest backyard breeder in El Paso history. And something else you need to keep in mind is as the systems got more views and more people started to understand the failures, they changed community sheltering to managed intake to capacity of care because they were trying to hide their failures.
Well, that's funny that you should bring that up because I just realized when I first reached out to you about what Best Friends Animal Society was doing in Weslaco, it sure appears that over the years they have been so relentless to try to reach a no-kill by 2025 goal that every one of their programs they've put in place has served that agenda, and not out of a love for animals, to help animals. And it appears to me that the Leave Them in the Streets program, which is called HOS, or community sheltering, where they don't let them in the shelter, that was just their last hurrah to try to manipulate those numbers to make them look better on paper, like they were actually successful. That's how it looks. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that this program was put in place to manipulate numbers?
Well, we know for a fact, don't we, Barbara, that everything they've done is manipulate numbers. I mean, everything. Nothing that comes out of our shelter has been transparent, honest, true, or even close to reality.
Well, I have a slide up here. It says who was involved, and we're going to just touch on this, not because we're trying to humiliate or blame, but just so you know, I did reach out to Dr. Ellen Jefferson. I reached out to the person or the foundation that funded the community sheltering program that was forced upon you, which is Maddie's Fund. And the family that backs Maddie's Fund up is Cheryl and Dave Duffield. I reached out to them as well to see if they would participate, and I did not get a response. So we're going to just briefly go over who funded this and whose idea was it. Well, the main architect was Dr. Ellen Jefferson, who I've known for years. She is the founder of Austin Pets Alive. And then also on these internal documents, you will see Paula Powell, who at the time worked for Austin Pets Alive. Kristen Hassan, everybody knows that name. She's got a path of destruction. Right now, she's out in California. A lot of the advocates are up in arms about that. Outcomes for Pets is the name of her consulting group. And then Amy Zifang is the manager of Maddie's Fund and the daughter of Dave and Cheryl Duffield. That's the group that funded the HOS program, or a good majority of it. Now, what I find absolutely, to me, this was so unbelievable. I don't know, Ron, if you can read that top line. And for anybody just tuning in, what you're looking at is an internal document that was obtained from open records about the HOS plan that Ron and Barbara are telling us about and how it was implemented in the city of El Paso. What does that say? Go ahead, Ron.
Use the disruption to the shelter system brought on by COVID-19 as an opportunity to re-envision the way shelters operate.
And what does it say down in the pink area?
Prevent the old model from being able to be reinstituted after the COVID-19 pandemic is over. Use data to drive decisions and strategy.
Okay. What does this say?
Intake of healthy strays and owner surrenders as it existed in February doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, stop there. This is supposed to be an open intake shelter that's funded by tax dollars. They pushed a program in the city of, well, let's just say city of El Paso is one of many. They rolled this out nationally, but this is what they rolled out. They did not want anybody to be able, any of the shelters paid for by tax dollars, to have healthy strays inside. People who needed to turn in their animals for whatever reason, they're not allowed to do that anymore. Like it says, it doesn't exist anymore. Can you please read the pink?
No kennel space for rehoming stray holds or intake.
Okay, so looks to me like you lost your shelter overnight and your tax dollars were hijacked to run a scam. So that's what it looks like to me. But let's, what does that next line say?
It says turn the entire community into the shelter.
Okay, so they took in 50,815 less animals. Ron, what was the budget in 2019?
The budget in 2019 was 8.8 million.
Okay, what is the budget now?
As of 25, because I don't have 26s yet, it was 13.7 million.
So they now, their budget is almost doubled, but they are taking in far less animals and making more money and taking more money from the taxpayers for a service that they no longer get. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and this was supposed to be a pilot. Did anybody check in with you guys as this pilot was going on to see how it was working out?
As far as any data?
No, did any of the Ellen Jefferson or anybody from Best Friends ever address any of the issues with this program? The stray explosion, the community not having the resources to care for the animals. Have they ever reached out to you to try to offer some sort of support?
Well, that's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because they claim, and this is part of their con game, and what they do is when they present their presentation to city councils and other elected officials and also with the community, they outright lie. They say that what this program offers is what they call hubs throughout the community, and these hubs are there for the community sheltering purposes, to provide services that the community needs. And it includes things like free community vet care services, housing assistance for people and their pets, social workers to aid in things. Yeah, I'm serious. Social work to aid in things like to help people apply for public assistance. If they're going through a medical issue or substance abuse problems, be able to get them the help they need for their substance abuse problems. Oh, also we're going to provide free dog behavior and training programs that the community can take advantage of. And the best part of all is that they also provide free transportation for community members to be able to go throughout the city to these different hubs to get these services that they need and these resources. The problem is that none of that actually exists. While it looks good on a presentation, there are no hubs, there are no social workers, there are no resource personnel. It's all a con.
So I think you both know that I reached out to Ellen Jefferson early on and to Best Friends Animal Society when you shared with me what was going on. And you are absolutely correct. Ellen Jefferson said, well, that's not the intent of Haas. And I said, yeah, but it's causing suffering and hurting the poor people. And you need to pull the program. And she said, I've spent thousands of dollars on this program. I said, no, you didn't. The Duffield family did. I said, coming from the pharmaceutical industry, if you have a trial drug and you're testing it out to see if it works and it ends up killing people, you pull it. And I'm going to put up here, because I know you mentioned there's no hubs.
No.
But what can you share with me? What was the public told to do with animals that they found? So after this program was implemented, let's just say a little old lady found a dog and she took it, or she called the shelter. What would they tell her?
Do you want that one, Ron, or do you want me to take it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Basically, the committee members are given two options. They would tell the nice little old lady that you can keep that stray. You take the stray into your home, and you can try to find an owner. Well, the problem with that is that the general public does not have the experience, the knowledge, or the resources at home to take in unfamiliar strays. And we did see lots of tragic cases of people taking in these strays, and the strays ending up mauling and severely injuring their own family pets, or even killing their family pets, as well as putting their families in danger. So that's one option.
That would scare me as well. I've been doing this 16 years, and never in a million years would I ask an untrained person to take a dog into their home if they were not an experienced dog handler. So that's option one. What's the other option they gave them?
The other option is to return the dog back onto the streets where you found it. And that's kind of, go ahead.
That's cruel.
That is not, yes, that is very, very cruel. But it's, I'm going to find this here because this is one thing that Ellen Jefferson stated when it comes to the strays.
Oh, well, yeah, while you're looking for it, I did, I will share this with you. When I called her, she described a beautiful program for a generation of people that doesn't exist today. And when I asked her why she was not educating in the schools and the communities, she said, well, I don't want to wait that long to reach no kill. So it was all centered around that goal of no kill. And then I asked her, can you please share with me a success story of Haas? I just want to know, what does success look like to you? And she said, well, if somebody has a drug problem and they, have to turn in their dogs because they have to go into a treatment facility, Haas would help them. And I said, so you basically have a community shelter now that doesn't have an open intake facility because you want to help out a couple of drug addicts that need a place for their dog to go, because you could find that anywhere. Somebody would help, somebody that was truly trying to go into a treatment program. You don't need to cause the suffering of thousands and thousands of animals and burden poor people in order to help those type of people. And that was the last time I ever heard from her. So,
yes.
So the putting them back in the road has caused a lot of outrage, not only with advocates, but with people that have big hearts like myself and like both of you and probably everybody watching this. I find that to be one of the cruelest things that you could actually do to any human being that is an empath or somebody with compassion. My phone started blowing up when they implemented this program in Brownsville, because just like you said, Barbara, the public is told you can either find a home yourself or put it in the road. How many phone calls have you gotten from people that were not able to take the dog to animal care services and they're calling you and Ron?
The numbers go into the thousands. In the last 6 years, I started counting over 3,000 messages. Those are text messages. That does not include voicemails. That does not include emails. I mean, I have thousands.
How about you, Ron?
I couldn't even begin to figure that out. I actually had to change my phone number about 3 or 4 months ago because I just couldn't keep up.
So the shelter is getting more tax dollars.
Ellen Jefferson justifies leaving these animals on the streets to suffer and fend for themselves. And her justification is, and these are her own words, if a person who locates a stray is unable to hold on to it until an owner is located, encourage them to leave the animal where it is in hopes it finds its way back home. My thinking is most lost animals are within 1,000 yards of their home, and they will make it back home on their own. But she has no data.
No, she has no data at all. The data that she's referring to, we've analyzed it, and it would not pass the scrutiny of a 9-year-old judge at a science fair. And
no, you're right.
No, it would not. But in order for that data to be relevant, you would have to look at what happened to all the animals that didn't find their way home. You can't just look at a small sliver that reinforces your agenda or that serves your agenda, and that's what they do. So for me, I'm going to read this. If your local animal shelter tells you that they can't take in a stray dog, where do you think the animal is supposed to go? And this is the public, the untrained public that they have pushed this on. I can't imagine any educated council person or anybody who understands this to go along with it. It defies logic. Because I'm going to ask you, do you know anybody who would put the dog back in the road? There are some people on their way to work that have no choice. Most people are going to bring them inside.
We know Ellen Jefferson does, and we also know Kristen Hassan does.
Yeah.
Kristen Hassan actually practices what she preaches. She has no problem driving by strays and not faze her. She has no problem when strays come into her neighborhood to let them, she'll take them in her home, she'll scan them. They don't have a chip. She literally throws them back out onto the streets. They practice what they preach, actually.
Well, tell me what happened with Nisa when they did, what happened with this dog? Because this dog came through your rescue, right?
Yes, this actually made national attention. Many national or news agencies picked up on this story, and it started the snowball going of how detrimental Haas it really is. Nisa was a dog that came from an abuse case. The rescue took her in. She did get adopted out. Shortly after she was adopted out, she somehow got out of her yard. Now, she was in a different part of the city. She was on the streets. A gentleman on his way to work saw her. She actually jumped in his car. Being a citizen and being programmed like the majority of people are programmed, the safe place for stray and lost animals is animal services.
Yes.
So he took Nisa to animal services. He informed animal services. He found her on the street. He was on his way to work, and he just wanted to drop her off. And they said, no, we are under the house plan. We're not taking strays in. So your option is to keep her. And he said, I have nowhere to safely contain her because I'm on my way to work. I have to go to work. And they said, well, your only other option is to let her go, put her back out on the street. So with no other options at the shelter, at the physical shelter location, the staff, they did not scan her for a microchip, which had several registered emergency contact numbers. But the staff watched the man open his car door and let Nisa run out. And the shelter is located in an industrial area. What happened was the next day we found Nisa dead. She had been hit by a vehicle. Like I said, Nisa was chipped, and there were 3 different contact numbers on her microchip. That dog would not have taken up any space at the shelter. One of us, including Ron, who lives like 5 minutes from the shelter, one of us could have picked her up at the shelter and she would have not taken up any kennel space. But no, the shelter staff watched her as she was abandoned back out onto the streets under their direction. And the result was what you see, that picture there.
So they are not taking, so dogs like Nisa, and I know that you guys know this, she is one of thousands that I've heard this has happened to. And I know when I first talked to you guys, I mean, these stray animals, it's exploded in your area now. I mean, I know, Barbara, you told me you can't even take your own dogs for a walk anymore.
No, you can't. You know, animals, they're going, you know, these, especially the dogs are going to form into packs as a way to survive. And unfortunately, what happens when you have the pack and the pack mentality? They're going to go after whatever they can. They go after other people's pets, cats, other wildlife within our community.
Have you seen, and they have seen a increase in bite cases, zoonotic diseases?
Yes.
And I know that your former Mayor Lisa was given a verbal warning from Dr. Waldrop that he better start picking up strays, or he was priming the community for a rabies outbreak. You cannot have all these unaltered strays that are not vaccinated. They are now prime targets for wildlife like coyotes and whatnot. And what happens if a puppy or a dog is bitten, becomes infected with rabies, and then a kid picks the puppy up, or a child? What happens? That's a very realistic scenario that can happen if this continues.
Well, we know for a fact that we've seen it. Lots of puppies being transported out of Texas to places like Colorado. And what happens when they go to these rescues in Colorado? Lo and behold, one of these puppies starts showing signs of illness, and the vet that checks them in Colorado says, rabies. Boy, they're displaying symptoms of rabies. So they start testing these puppies, and they all come down. They all test positive for rabies. But the sad part is these puppies have already traveled from Texas through to Colorado and are in homes. Now all of these puppies need to be euthanized. And then all of these family members have to go undergo the rabies treatment. So this is what is caused by Haas, and it's a domino effect. It doesn't just affect our community; it also affects other communities that have interaction with our community.
Now, are they tracking? And I asked you this earlier. I just want to just ask it again. Are they tracking any of the animals that they turn away? Like, was Nisa even logged into the system that she came there?
No, okay. They just, all they do when a community member comes to the shelter with a stray, all they do is say, we are not taking strays in, and they hand them a sheet of paper that has a list of all the local rescues and their phone numbers and contact information. And in some of that information includes directors' personal phone numbers. It includes their personal addresses.
Oh, yeah.
These people are showing up at these people's houses and abandoning puppies.
I can't. And so the shelter is really not your shelter anymore. It is your tax dollars have been hijacked to run what?
Well, the whole thing is the shelter, the tax dollars are being used before Haas. The primary function of our shelter was, one, to prevent and control the transmission of rabies. Okay.
Yes.
Also, it was to reduce the number of unwanted and stray dogs and cats in our city. Also, it's to protect public health, safety, and welfare. Okay. And then it's also required to not only enforce local ordinances, but they are also required to abide by local ordinances and state laws. That was the operation and the function of our shelter. Currently, our shelter does none of those. Absolutely none.
Well, what I believe these national organizations do very well is they muddy the lines. They prey on the uninformed animal lover. They go to city council. They go and tell people, this is the ruse I've heard. Do you like to kill animals, Mayor? Because the city doesn't like the fact that you're allowing their tax dollars to be used to kill animals. and they push them towards these reckless policies that reduce the number of animals that are euthanized humanely inside the shelter, but they push them into what do we call environmental euthanasia?
Yes,
So
that's the term.
it's environmental euthanasia. So your average animal lover, somebody who is maybe the mayor or city council, they don't understand these programs like us on the ground do. And so what they hear is, well, we don't want to euthanize animals. They don't tell them that we're going to flood your streets with strays. We're going to make the public absolutely where they cannot walk on their own in their own streets and in their own communities. We're going to jeopardize public safety. They don't tell them that. I can't imagine that they do. And they don't explain these programs to them in a way that they understand them. Just like when Ellen Jefferson, I asked her, what is this program for? She had a long, drawn out, la la land. It was almost like a unicorn type society that is not reality. She's like living in an altered state. I'll show you, I pulled a clip I want you to see. And I think you guys, I think you've seen this before, but she actually was saying that overpopulation is a myth.
Yes.
And here's the term, humane euthanasia versus environmental euthanasia. I don't like euthanizing animals at all. There's no part of me that wants to euthanize animals. But if I had to pick humane euthanasia versus environmental euthanasia, humane euthanasia, again, that's hard for me to say. I don't even like the word. But I've seen what environmental euthanasia does, and it is cruel. But take a look at this. Let's see. Let's see if I can get it to play. Here we go.
Is a myth. It is population is a myth. It is not population is a myth. It is
overpopulation is not a myth, Ellen Jefferson. It's not a myth. But these are some of the things that you guys were sharing with me. And this is what dogs like this, I can't stand seeing this. And this is what your everyday community is like.
We are picking up, rescues are taking in or also going out within the community and picking up dozens of dogs like this every day.
This one hurt me here. Can you tell me what happened here?
That was one of Karen's deals that she went out on a call. There was a mama and some puppies, or about 10 weeks old. I think 3 of them had been half eaten, as you can see, by other strays.
And this is what's happening. These animals are giving birth out in the community, but this is out of sight, out of mind. The only people seeing this are community members driving by and your rescuers that are trying to pick up the pieces. So if you take the 50,815 animals that didn't make their way in animal care services that are now in your community compounding and making more strays, this has also been rolled out in Memphis, in Dallas, in Atlanta, out in LA, and other pilot cities they call throughout the United States. There is no doubt in my mind why we have a stray explosion of animals, and the people responsible for it, in my humble opinion, is the developer or the architect of Haas, which is Ellen Jefferson, and the people who funded it, and Best Friends Animal Society for pushing it. How do you feel about that?
Personally, I think Best Friends and Austin Pets Alive should be taken out of the animal welfare business. I think the millions of dollars they've stashed away should be taken and given to do spay and neuter programs and get places for these animals to go. You know, we've got people donating millions of dollars, and very little of the money's actually going towards animal welfare. Again, like I told you originally, it's a con. You know, where if we did that, you know, they'd be looking at us for fraud.
Well, if you abandon your dog out in the community, you can get a ticket for that. Animal abandonment is against Texas law, but yet they're telling your citizens to abandon animals.
Yes, they're telling our citizens to break the law.
To break the law.
Correct.
Well, I'm hopeful that this is going to be the year of litigation, because we're already starting to see attorneys taking cases on, you know, with cities that are allowing these dangerous dogs out in the community. Maybe they're going to pay out enough in litigation that they wake up and say, you know what, maybe we should just go back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is what you described so well, Barbara, is our animal shelter is supposed to keep the public safe from rabies. And again, what other services were you receiving before this program took over?
Before this program took over, we had 2 very large spay neuter vans, and they would go out into the community 6 days a week, and they targeted the lower income neighborhoods to provide free spay and neuters to those people. As well, the shelter had a very robust voucher program that they collaborated with several of the vet offices in the city to help people on fixed incomes to get their pets spayed and neutered. Mm-hmm. We were seeing, you know, we saw it was a huge difference. And we saw that as some of the animals that would come into the shelter, we were seeing that we would be able to tell with the male dogs, they were already neutered. So we were seeing the impact of that was very positive. And we're seeing lots of the animals that they got out of their yards, they had been neutered, which is a great news. But when Haas was implemented, they discontinued those programs. And unfortunately, currently now, 99% of the animals that Animal Services ends up taking into their shelter, they're not spayed or neutered.
No. So I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that are thinking, what's in it for them? Like, why would they do this? And my answer, and I don't know if it's the same as yours, is they've almost doubled their budget. So instead of getting 8.8 million, now they're up to 13 million. They take care of a fraction of the animals, but they promote to their donors, look how successful we are. We don't euthanize animals anymore. So their donors don't see what we're seeing on the ground. So on paper, it looks really good. Is that, because what do you think they're getting out of that? I mean, why would they do this? What other reason would they have for doing this?
Well, and honestly, one of the things you got to keep in mind with El Paso, when Chris Canales started talking nasties about Barbara and I, his conversation said that we were trying to euthanize more. And it turned out when I did the numbers, since Chris was in ASAC, that they took in 13,914 less strays, and yet they killed 1,771 more. So even if you look at the real numbers, they're actually killing more than they used to under what we had in 2019 comparisons. I mean,
but Ron, if the general public is watching this, somebody that just loves animals, they have a little dog or two, and now they see that, okay, well, we don't even have a shelter basically anymore.
Right.
I would be wondering, why would the shelter decide to do this? What is in it for them? Money.
You know, and that's the whole thing. When you talk about Haas and Best Friends and what they have done with this program is they put in a lot of money into a very ingenious marketing strategy.
Right.
And what they do is they go from city to city and they promote this. Look what we did in El Paso. And they claim it was such a success in El Paso that we left. We didn't have to fill out to stay the full length of our contract. We left early because it was so successful.
They got kicked out.
They got kicked out. The truth is we kicked them out, but they used that lie, and then they project it to the mass population saying, look, we need more money so we can go into your community and implement these very successful programs. We need money, give us money. And people, will throw money hand in fist because they don't know the truth.
Yep. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme. They go
Absolutely.
from one city to the next, and they use fake success from El Paso and any place they go to talk to the next city who doesn't know any better. It sounds good. It sounds like a Ponzi scheme, but I'm going to say this though. The 50,000 stray 815 less in El Paso. I pulled the numbers in Dallas over the same time period that we're talking about because they implemented this program as well. The numbers were similar. So if you take 50,000 less animals that have been left they're now on the street in Dallas, 50,000 in El Paso. What about Atlanta, DeKalb? What
Yes.
they're doing over there. Look at all these cities that have left thousands and thousands and thousands of animals on the streets for the untrained animal lover to take care of. There's no wonder our bite cases are up.
Yes.
Our zoonotic diseases are up. And the only thing, what they're getting is more money. Now it's got to stop. We need to expose what they've done. Best Friends Animal Society and their no-kill, the way they do things, they need to be removed from the animal world. And I've said this before, they are the Jeffrey Epstein of the animal world.
Absolutely.
They are. And anybody who takes funding from them, don't call me and complain about what they're doing in your city. You cannot take money from people that do the things that they've done, like in El Paso, and think you're going to have a good outcome. I witnessed it all with a front row seat, and had it not been for you two telling me what they were going to do, I would have had no idea what was going on, because it appeared that they were trying to help, but they did anything but help. The cities that they have been in, they have left mass destruction. And my heart has always been torn apart for the people in the poor communities, people that can barely pay their bills, that love animals, trying to help a little chihuahua that crawled in their backyard, and they don't have the money to feed themselves, but now they're taking in more. Maybe this is why we have more hoarding cases. Maybe this is why, we're seeing so much neglect out there. I think it all plays into this fake no-kill. It's just not possible the way they have been doing things. It's a nice dream, but it doesn't work. So we're going to wrap up here. I just wanted to say, what is the solution here? Like if Best Friends, Ellen Jefferson, and the Duffield family with Maddie's Fund were listening, what would you want to say to them? Was there anything you'd want them to know? Because they certainly have the funding to help fix what they've created, which is a mess. But what would you like to say to them?
Go ahead, Ron. I'll let you go first.
I'd probably start out by trying to explain to them the actual disaster that they funded. I would like to explain to them how much damage they've done to the community, to their pets, to the strays. I mean, it's just been such a cluster. And, they sit up there and they donate money to, like Best Friends and Austin Pets Alive. And these people should be charged with animal cruelty. They should be removed from the animal welfare. They should have their funds confiscated. and they should have their money distributed to help the animals in the country that they've screwed up the cities in.
I agree.
mean,
I agree. In fact, I think the Attorney General should go after them, because if you think about their marketing, it's misleading. Save them all. And we're going to help animals. Do you think any animal lover on the planet would donate if they knew that, hey, let's just ask this simple question. If you have 2 dogs, one is inside the shelter and one is outside the shelter, and I say, hey, which one of these deserves a loving home? My answer is they both do. They both do. What is their answer?
They only care about what's in the shelter.
What?
They do not even talk about the ones around the street.
And the ones that they're creating out in the street to try to make it look like they have a successful program on the inside.
Correct.
Yes.
I personally think that they should take funding, come into the cities that they've ruined, and help you guys clean things up. Whether they expand and put a building to accommodate all the strays they've created, spay neuter clinics, and everyone knows that I'm big on education, because I do not believe that we will ever be able to be a better, it will never be a better place for people and their pets for future generations unless we educate not only children, but adults. The problem is that's not a sexy solution, because it's not an immediate overnight something that's going to work. It takes time. But there is nothing that has a problem this severe that you could flip a switch and it's just fixed. That's not possible. And unfortunately, with what they've created, when you talk about the 50,000 strays, we will not get out of this without humane euthanasia. We won't, because
No.
I'm even having trouble finding small dogs homes right now. The large dogs have always been harder to place. But when you look at the saturation in the community that they've caused, no wonder we're having trouble finding homes for dogs. Barbara, you guys are both in the rescue world. Are you having trouble? Like, how has that affected your rescue partners that you used to send animals to, Ron?
Yeah, well, I had 8 fantastic out-of-state rescues that I dealt with on a regular basis. And basically, between all the money they had to spend because of diseases and all the money they spent in transportation costs and vet costs, and you can only send so many strays to a city before they're overflowing with the strays from here. And at this point, the last couple of strays I took in, it took me months to find places for them, where it used to be I just grab whatever came through the door at the shelter and I'd find places for it by the weekend.
Right. And it
Those
was
days are gone.
right.
They're gone. We flooded the market. It's our fault. The city of El Paso did this to the city of El Paso, and it's time they take responsibility for what they've done. You know, we need to stop paying attention to our librarian city manager, because she doesn't have a clue.
They've done it all over the country, though, Ron. Not
Yeah, but what they do is they like Paula Powell is friends with our city manager, so she's still got her thumb on the HOS plan, and you know, we've got our city rep, Chris Canales. I mean, his post in Chukopedia is word for word right out of the Best Friends Handbook.
Here's the only light I see at the end of the tunnel. There are people catching on to this scam, and animal lovers. You got to remember, how did these people get to the top? These large national organizations like Best Friends, they did that by preying on who? The uneducated, the young, the
uninformed.
uninformed animal lover.
Yes.
Well, that's not the case anymore, because people are starting to figure out what they're doing. So they really don't have any place left to go. They're backed in a corner, and they're getting a lot of pushback right now, because people are doing what we're doing right here. We're telling people what the reality is. All these programs that they put on a glossy spread, slide presentation for funders, Barbara, that you just said, none of it, they didn't, it's a lie.
Yep, it's all a lie.
It's all a lie. And what kills me is when you pilot something You're supposed to learn from it. If someone told me that one of my programs was killing animals or causing the suffering you see on the screen right here, I would be on the next plane to try to fix it. How do we make it better? How do we improve what we're doing? Because it's not working. They have swept it under the rug. They've never apologized. They've never apologized to you, Ron, or any of the rescuers that I know of. They've been asking for more money at each city council meeting to fund helping less animals. And for people like me and you, we're drowning. We can't do any more than we're doing, and we're not given funding that they're given. So
Correct.
I do feel like people are catching on. Again, when you have 50,000 strays that just magically disappeared that nobody counted, that's not data. That's not data. I want outcomes data, meaning I want to know where that animal is 3 months, 6 months, and a year down the road. That's what an animal lover wants to know. I don't want to see a no barrier, give them away to anybody with a pulse. All of those programs that I've seen implemented, all of them have been to serve numbers and an agenda. And they were not developed by anybody who loves animals, because no animal lover would do that. So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Barbara.
No, I wanted to put this little warning out for people to be aware, all of those listening tonight, to be aware that yes, Best Friends and Haas has been backed into a corner. They did not succeed with their Save Them All in 2025. And they realize that the general public is starting to catch on to their con game, their shtick, like I like to call it.
Good.
So what they are now doing is they are trying to promote this in the backdoor way, that I call it. And what they're doing is they're bringing on independent shelter consultants.
Yep.
And so now these independent shelter consultants are going to cities, and they're doing assessments to help the shelters in these cities to better their programs. And, as they put it, we're going to lower your euthanasia rates, and we're going to increase your adoption rates. And then when they get the plan, when they get the assessment from this shelter advisor, this consultant, you look at the plan, this assessment, and everything on it is implement this portion of HUS, implement this portion of Best Friends. You need to bring Best Friends in to put their embed shelter program in. We need Best Friends in here to actually run your shelter for you until you can get a handle on it. So even though they have been going, they up front and doing it, now they're doing it
on the back end.
On the back, they're coming into a back door now. So everybody needs to be aware and look out for that.
Thank you. And I still believe that the Attorney General at some point should be involved. They're supposed to protect the public against fraudulent marketing. You
Right.
cannot defraud the public and misappropriate people's donations. If I were to have donated because they told me they were going to save them all, and I found out what I know now, I'd want my money back.
Yes.
So that's defrauding the public. Well, thank you for sharing that, Barbara, because I think that's exactly what I'm hearing they're doing in a lot of cities, because their name is starting to get it's mud.
Yes.
So now they're going in, like you said, through consultants, and they'll pay. Well, it's going to come to an end. You can't not continue lying, cheating, hurting animals, and hurting poor people forever and think that it's going to end well. It won't. So we just have to keep spreading the word. Thank you both for sharing this with everybody. I think everybody needs to hear this. There's no doubt in my mind why we have an explosion of stray animals right now, and why it's so hard for people to adopt out their animals. Our rescue groups, 50,815 less animals is a lot of animals. And when you add that to cities like Dallas and Atlanta and New York and all over the place, that's why we have a stray problem right now. These people are responsible, in my humble opinion, for the largest stray explosion in my lifetime I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I've recorded this, And thank you again. I'm going to go through and see if there's any questions after I end this, and I will send this out and make sure it's available for everybody. For everybody tuning in, thank you very much for letting us share this. Rescuers, we've been having it's as you heard from Ron and Barbara, it's been a hard 6 years. And unless you understand what's happened, you wouldn't understand the frustration that we all share right now. So we all need to band together and fight these people, because good will win in the end. And I believe that. So on that note, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you for your time.
Through the forefront.
Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see.